A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. In a bold and controversial decision, the Trump administration has announced the deployment of National Guard troops to Los Angeles, a move that has drawn sharp criticism from California Governor Gavin Newsom. The president's action, which utilizes powers rarely invoked, aims to address ongoing protests related to immigration enforcement. President Trump issued a memo directing the Defense and Homeland Security departments to activate the National Guard under Title 10, a provision that allows for federalizing National Guard troops to protect federal personnel, including those from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, IC. In his memo, Trump cited what he described as numerous incidents of violence and disorder, asserting that protests have threatened federal immigration detention facilities and constituted a rebellion against the authority of the United States government. The president's decision to call up at least 2,000 National Guard troops for a period of 60 days has raised alarm among legal scholars and civil rights advocates. Erwin Chemerinsky, a prominent constitutional law expert, expressed that this federal takeover of the California National Guard, without the governor's request, is truly chilling. He emphasized that such actions signal a willingness to use military force against dissent, a practice typically associated with authoritarian regimes. The announcement was made by Tom Homan, the Trump administration's border czar, during an interview on Fox News, where he emphasized the administration's commitment to enforcing immigration laws. Homan stated, "We're not going to apologize for doing it. We're stepping up." This declaration comes at a time when protests against ICE operations have intensified, with demonstrators confronting immigration agents during raids. Governor Newsom condemned the federal action, asserting that local law enforcement was already effectively managing the situation. He characterized the deployment of troops as purposefully inflammatory and warned that it would likely escalate tensions rather than alleviate them. In a phone call with President Trump, Newsom expressed his concerns about the potential for increased conflict. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth also weighed in, suggesting that if violence persists, active-duty Marines stationed at Camp Pendleton could be mobilized, a statement that Newsom described as a threat against U.S. citizens. Critics are wary that Trump may also consider invoking the Insurrection Act of 1807, a legal provision that enables the federal government to deploy troops to suppress insurrections or domestic violence. This act has historically been reserved for extreme circumstances where state authorities are unable or unwilling to maintain order. The American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, has criticized the deployment of National Guard troops as unnecessary and dangerous, arguing that it undermines the foundational democratic principle that the military should not engage in policing civilians. Hina Shamsi, director of the ACLU's National Security Project, stated, "By taking this action, the Trump administration is putting Angelenos in danger and recklessly undermining our foundational democratic principle." The historical context of Title 10 activation reveals that such deployments are rare, with Congress prohibiting troops from providing direct assistance to civilian law enforcement under the Posse Comitatus Act. However, the Insurrection Act presents an exception to this rule. Legal experts have noted that invoking the Insurrection Act could lead to significant legal battles over the extent of presidential authority in these circumstances. Jessica Levinson, a law professor, emphasized that if the president does invoke the Insurrection Act, it would trigger a series of legal challenges regarding the use of military force in domestic situations. The Los Angeles Police Department reported that protests on Saturday remained peaceful, commending those who exercised their First Amendment rights responsibly. Chemerinsky cautioned that the use of military force to quell protests is typically associated with dictatorships and should be viewed as a last resort. He expressed concern that the Trump administration's actions might signal a broader intention to intimidate and suppress dissent among protesters. As the situation unfolds, California's political landscape remains tense, with Governor Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass urging restraint and dialogue rather than militarization. The deployment of National Guard troops in response to protests has ignited a fierce debate about the balance of power between state and federal authorities, the role of the military in domestic affairs, and the implications for civil liberties in the United States. As the nation watches closely, the actions of the Trump administration will undoubtedly shape the future of civil rights and government authority in America. That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.